Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another social emotional workshop. Today, our topic is implicit bias and diversity. Joe, welcome back. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, thank you. I will share my screen here and get this show started. Let's make this bigger. There we go. All right, that big enough for everyone to see? Everybody can see it clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, so I see some thumbs up, very good. Just organizing my screen here. Okay. Diversity and inclusion, implicit bias and stuff. I mean, a lot of things going on in the world right now. We're really not going to talk about race. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about that implicit or unconscious bias and such. So let's take this journey here. And again, please feel free to put in the chat a question or a clarification of a skill or something, or an opinion that you'd like to share. That would be helpful and great to get the communications, people's different perspectives all heard. And you can stop and interrupt me at any time. Also, if I do say something that comes off a little off and you want to talk about it, please speak up and we can talk about it, because our job isn't necessarily to get it right. Our job is to kind of focus, and our job isn't to be right, it's to get it right. So if somebody does say something that's off, that's offending, to kind of ask a question. So, hey, I'm concerned on what you just said. You know, what do you mean by that? When I hear you say that, I hear A, B, and C, and we can talk about that. Because in today's world, when somebody says something that's off, that other person gets defensive. They might not say something, but it kind of makes them angry and they vent to somebody else, or they might just totally respond to you in a really disrespectful way also. So just to have clear communication and understanding that everybody's perspective is very different. And I am going to unshare this and play this video, because I think this video is really going to be relevant. All right, here we go. All right, this is called the Mcgurk Effect. Anybody has ever heard of the Mcgurk Effect? Make sure my stuff is being shared. Okay, so do what they're saying here and listen to what this guy is saying. And let me explain it. He's going to give a sound, and he's going to repeat the sound, and you say what you're hearing in your head.
Ba, ba.
Have a look at this.
Ba,
What do you hear?
ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba.
But look what happens when we change the picture.
Ba, ba, ba. Ba, ba, ba. Ba.
And yet, the sound hasn't changed. In every clip, you are only ever hearing ba with a B.
Ba, ba. Ba.
It's an illusion known as the Mcgurk Effect.
Ba.
Take another look.
Ba.
Concentrate first on the right of the screen.
Ba.
Now to the left of the screen.
Ba.
The illusion occurs because what you are seeing clashes with what you are hearing.
In the illusion, what we see overrides what we hear. So the mouth movements we see as we look at a face can actually influence what we believe we're hearing. If we close our eyes, we actually hear the sound as it is. If we open our eyes, we actually see how the mouth movements can influence what we're hearing. Ba, ba, ba.
It's a bizarre effect. Remember, the only sound you're hearing is bar with a B.
Ba, ba.
All right, so now he's saying, his mouth is saying fa. So I want you to listen to his words, but close your eyes.
Ba, ba, ba.
What's remarkable about this illusion is even knowing how it's done.
All right, so we'll stop there. So it depends. If you're watching his lips, you'll say he's saying fa. But if you close your eyes, you hear ba. Really interesting. And what's really interesting, no matter if you know what's happening or not, you can't see his lips say fa and hear ba, because what we're seeing is telling us that he is saying fa, fa, ba, and our brains cannot determine the ba. So why am I sharing this? I kind of relate it to that unconscious bias. Everything that we're seeing isn't really real. Everything we're seeing is our perspective of what is happening, what we experienced in our lives. All right, culture now. So let me give you a broad definition of culture besides what's on the screen. Culture is common beliefs, values, and traditions passed on through generation. That's all they are: beliefs, values, and traditions passed on through the generations. So we're talking about values, lifestyles, social norms, communication styles, mannerisms, the way we dress, family structures. Let's look at that orientation to time. Do all cultures have a strong orientation to time? Do you know anybody in your life that always shows up late for dinner, for parties, for work? Now, is that just a disrespectful person? Or does that person just not have a strong value to clock time? No, it's a big deal. If, I mean, the meeting doesn't start till 9:15, really, after everybody's done saying hi's and getting their coffee and, exchange their good mornings and stuff. So why be there at 9 o'clock? It's no big deal. But if it is a big deal, it's going to need to be communicated to say, or let's say a doctor's office. If a patient shows up at 9:15 for a 9 o'clock appointment, what does that doctor think? Or the administrators that's working the counter. They might think, how rude of that person, how disrespectful. Look at this person. And they have that assumption of that person, but that person just might not have a strong orientation to time. When I went through my psychology degree, we're talking about orientation to time. Native Americans don't have a strong orientation to clock time. They're more kind of free and spiritual, and clock time isn't much value to them. So they show up at 9:15. If that does create a problem, then that doctor's office need to say, excuse me, it's really important to show up at 9 o'clock. Because if you show up at 9:15, it puts all the patients backlogged, and we won't be able to see you because you already took the next patient. So it needs to be communicated. But that assumption that that person who is late is, I shouldn't say a bad person, but that's what our assumption is, disrespectful, but it's just their culture. What about response to authority? Does everybody have the same response to authority? No, some people maybe migrate here from communist countries and they're used to following laws and rigidity, so they're very adaptable to authority. But some cultures might have to fight for everything they get. They might have to always kind of be in this contentious situations, and they don't respond to authority like somebody else. Some neighborhoods like police presence in their neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods are threatened by police presence in their neighborhoods. It all depends on what their culture is, what they experience, what their values are, what the traditions have been passed down. Which takes me to this next slide, which is the Diversity Kaleidoscope. This is us in the middle, personality, our persona. And our personality, our beliefs, our values, our assumptions, I'm going to use that word assumptions a lot. They're all influenced by these things around this diversity kaleidoscope. Our sexual orientation, our race, our physical ability, our age are all going to influence what I believe, my values, my assumptions of other people. So I would ask you all, do you think a 25-year-old man or woman has the same beliefs, values as maybe a 60-year-old man or woman? Same beliefs, same value? No, absolutely not. There's generational differences, right? You have your veterans, you have your baby boomers, your Gen X, your millennials, and we have Gen Z who's coming into the workforce right presently. We all had a different life experience. Our formative years. Our formative years are kind of our adolescence, our early 20s, our adolescence. What was happening in the world? What was happening in our neighborhoods? What was happening in, our government that influenced who we are? Let me give you some generational differences. The veterans, born during, World War I, or they were growing up, in their formative years in World War I. They were all command and control, right? Follow the hierarchy, command and control, don't talk back, be obedient. Communication styles, face-to-face. Then the baby boomers. After World War II, they grew up in an industrial revolution where everything was just booming. Right? The veterans grew up during the Great Depression, right? Conserve, and my father, he never threw anything out. If he took down a broken screen door and put up a new one, that broken screen door would go in the garage, just in case we need it, right? We might need pieces off of it. So we didn't throw it out because while he was growing up, being raised by the veterans, saying that conserve and never throw anything out because you might, need it later. But the baby boomers, they grew up in industrial revolution. Everybody's winning. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. Although, jobs and just the economy is all booming. So they still have face-to-face communication. They don't talk back to authority. Right? What happened when they were growing up and they talked back to their elders, right? Kids should be seen and not heard in that generation. So they don't talk back, they just follow along. And the baby boomers have a certain kind of belief system. And then Gen X. The Gen Xers kind of grew up where there was more divorce. The divorce rate is getting higher. Latchkey kids. You got two working parents in the home. So when the kids come home or they stay after school in latchkey, they come home to an empty household maybe. That was the Nixon years where our government was lying to us. Now I'm looking at my video here and I'm really glitchy. Is my audio and stuff coming through all right?
It's glitchy.
It's glitchy?
Yes.
All right, so were you guys going to sit with me for an hour and not really hear this comfortably?
I can hear it well. I don't have any
Doesn't matter.
problem.
Okay, so the audio is coming through. It's just a video that's glitchy?
All I see, the Diversity Kaleidoscope is up.
All right. Okay, so I'm
Match your
going to,
face, but I can hear it fine.
okay, so I'm going to do something here. I'm going to stop. Toni, can I log off and log back on?
Sure.
I want to make it pleasant because I know how it's, okay, so Gen Xers, they have a little edge to them because we grew up during maybe the Nixon, Watergate, divorce, a little bit more prevalent, right? So now we have a little edge to us. We're not going to sacrifice like our veteran grandparents and our baby boomer parents. We're not sacrificing because I saw what my father sacrifice his life for his career and sacrifice his family. I ain't doing that. I want some home life balance. A Gen X will quit his job to go on vacation. You don't want me to go on vacation? Fine, I'll just quit. Baby boomer would never do that because they need to sacrifice. So generational differences are going to have different values and beliefs. Geographic location, that's going to influence who we are, where we grew up. My father always said they grew up on the other side of the railroad tracks. They're different over there, right? They dress different, they talk different. Stinky food they're cooking over there, I don't know what's going on over there, but they're different across the railroad tracks. Income level is going to influence. So if you were a white collar or blue collar, or maybe no collar, what are the assumptions of a white collar person if somebody that's on the poverty level or on the system? What are their assumptions? Or maybe somebody that's on the system, what do they think about the white collar worker? What are the beliefs or assumptions that they have? Physical appearance. Let me tell you this. Did you know that more attractive people are smarter than less attractive people? Anybody believe that?
No.
Of course not, right? I don't want you to believe everything I'm saying. I want you to process it and say, Joe, oh my God, that's ridiculous and offensive. Of course it is. But study after study, they have shown that we judge people by their appearance.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
When you see somebody, you're judging them on how smart they are, where they're from, or how much money they have, or something. Yes, because we have this unconscious bias in us.
Yeah.
So they did these studies. They have this person, and they take them to this neighborhood. They're lost, and they ask them to go ask the group of kids on the street corner to ask for directions. And who do you think that person asked for directions? What kid out of the group of kids would they ask? And the answer was the tallest kid. Why would they ask the tallest kid time after time?
Did they think he was older and maybe knew more?
That's it. So the taller kid must be the smartest. He must be the oldest. He might be the dumbest one in the bunch. We don't know. But our brain tells us the taller one has the hierarchy. He's the oldest and smartest. And who do you sit next to? You walk into a waiting room, and here's a person sitting here, here, and here. I mean, who do you sit next to? Of course, in your mind, you say, oh, it doesn't matter. I just sit, I like by the window. But is your unconscious mind going to direct you to sit somewhere where you're more comfortable, where you're more safe, where you're more, what's it called? Can't remember this word, not comfortable, but what's familiar to you. Education. What do you think about a college graduate and a high school dropout? What assumptions do they have between each other? Do you think maybe somebody who graduated from high school has the same values and beliefs as somebody who maybe has a doctorate degree? They may. But there's some assumptions based on that. What does a person who is highly educated think of a person who dropped out of high school, or vice versa? So all of these things, language, work experience, religion, parental status, marital status. Do you think that a married man has the same beliefs, values, and behaviors as a single man? Possibly. Anybody got an opinion on that one? I know some married women who don't even let their husbands hang out with a single man. They're like, you're not going out with him. He's dangerous. Don't hang out with him. He's going to get you in trouble. Because their assumption is that that single man has different values, different behaviors than the married man. Classification. Are you high class, middle class, low class? Well, you ain't got no class. If anybody saw that movie, Rodney Dangerfield, Back to School, Call me when you ain't got no class. So what classification do you fit into? And what are your assumptions as somebody that's, opposite, below or above that classification? Or your work field. Are you in education? Are you in industry? Are you in service? What work field do you have? And what assumptions and values does that give your personality? Political ideology. Would you like to talk about politics right now? Absolutely not. But one thing about politics, if you learn anything from this training, learn this, that Democrats and Republicans, they do not think the same. They're different, right? So they influence our personality, our persona in different ways. Union affiliations. Are you pro-union? Are you anti-union? I don't know. So if your ancestry came here to the Western world and they got jobs in factories and butcher shops and such, and they made $6 a week and didn't have health insurance, and if they got hurt, they would just lose their job and they just go to the parking lot and pick out another dozen people that take your place. And then the unions came. They gave them livable wages, health insurance, job security and protection. Now, if you come from that background, you'll say, yes, unions built America, pro-union. But if you came from the background of your ancestry that came to the Western world, maybe got jobs that they were treated fine and healthy, had a livable wage, or maybe they opened up their own businesses, hired hundreds of people and treated them well. Then the unions came and they said, no, we don't want the unions here. The unions are corrupt. They are expensive and they protect the lazy worker. Unions are bad. So if you come from that culture, that experience, you'll say unions are what destroyed America. So good or bad, it doesn't really, nothing's neither good or bad. It's how you think of it and what your experiences were. Seniority, skills, and talents, they all influence our perceptions, our assumptions, our values and behaviors. Okay, wrong direction. All right, so how do we deepen our commitment for understanding and inclusion now with all of these differences, all this diversity in our world? We need to have a little cultural knowledge and a little sensitivity. And hopefully that will bring us to some type of cultural effectiveness. So if somebody goes, your assumption is that that person is so different than you, just to learn about where they're from, what made them who they are. A little bit of education, as well as a little understanding. So we need to look beyond the surface. You may know me. You've probably seen me half a dozen times so far, but you have no idea who I am. You don't know if both my parents were drug addicts and I was raised in the foster care system. You don't know that. You don't know if both my parents were killed in a car accident and I was raised by my grandparents. You don't know if I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth and I'm a trust fund baby and never had to suffer or deal with anything in my life. It was all taken care of for me. You have no idea who I am. You only see this tip of this iceberg. You only see my persona, the way I dress, the way I talk, my behavior, but you have no idea what's underneath that. So this first exercise, and I want you guys to write in the chat, when it comes to diversity, if you really knew me well, you would know that. And share something in the chat that is cultural, maybe a tradition, maybe a childhood experience, something about you that your colleagues might not know. Now, I don't want you opening up your closet and exposing any of those dark skeletons in there. That's not what this is about, right? Keep it at surface level. And let me give you an example. I'm 100% Italian, and our tradition in my Italian culture is children stay living at home with their parents until they get married. And when they get married, then they move out and live happily ever after, we would hope. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I am 55 years old, and I've never been married. But I did move out of my parents' house. So get all those assumptions out of your brains right now. And usually I like being in a room where I see the faces, like, what is he saying? Is he saying he still lives with his parents? Because that's my culture. So I will ask you all, what would you think or assume of if you met a person 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old that lived at home with their parents, men and women in the room, what would you think? Unmute yourselves and tell me.
I would think they're trying to save some money.
Oh, Susan, I missed that one. Say it again.
I said they probably are trying to save money.
Okay, so they might be trying to save money, or they have a lot of money because they don't have to pay a mortgage or rent.
Yes.
I would think they don't have a good job because they couldn't afford to live on their own.
All right.
I would think that they can't hold a job. They keep getting fired, keep getting bounced back, have a ton of debt. They can't afford to live on their own.
All right. Very good. Anybody think that he might be a mama's boy? Something wrong with him? Broken? Those are some of the other things I get when I do this activity. So you have no idea. He might be a widower. He might be caregiving for his parents.
Yeah.
It might be his house and his parents live with him. We don't know. All we see is that tip of the iceberg. So in the chat, write something, write a value, write a cultural, a tradition, write something about yourselves in the chat, if you're willing. And while you're thinking about it, some people say, I didn't come to work to make friends, right? I don't need to know people's business. I didn't come to work to make friends. And I say, you didn't come to work to make enemies either, right? We are human beings. We need a connection with the people around us. So some information and some sensitivity can bring us closer together. You can't work an 8-hour job and just be isolated and not, get to know your colleagues. So let's see, I am a hard worker with a very strong work ethic, all right. Somebody else says, if you knew me well, you'd know that I'd love to travel, all right. Is that why you take so much vacation time and you're never there? I'm just kidding. If you'd like to travel, she's always off. She's always on vacation.
I wish. It's been a year and a half. Last time I went to Italy, Joe. I used to work with Italian learners, so.
That's my dream, learning Italian and then going to Italy. 100% Italian and I can't speak it. It's embarrassing to me. If you knew me well, you would know I love organization. All right. Anybody else? A cultural tradition that they did from their childhood or their family? Okay, if you knew me well, you would know I love vinyl records. Okay, cool. Nice collection of vinyl records. Now, the reason why we're doing this activity here, here's some of the other ones I've heard in other trainings. She learned that usually in the room, I'd partner you up 2 by 2 and learn something from your partner, whoever's sitting behind you. And then I said, what did you learn from your partner? One person would say, I learned that my partner here speaks a second language. I said, how long have you been working together? They said 10 years. I It's like, you've been working for 10 years with this lady and you just found out that she spoke a second language. I mean, in 10 years, she could have taught you that second language. Another one was one person grew up on a farm, the other one grew up in the city. How awesome would that be? What was that like? You know, did you have to milk cows? I mean, did you wake up at, you know, that conversation? Another one was this lady's father was a disabled war veteran. Why do we need to know this stuff about our colleagues? What if I was anti-war and all my rhetoric would be about anti-war and stuff? And my colleague here that works, you know, in the next cubicle is has a wounded disabled father, war veteran father. What would that do to our relationship?
Hopefully you'd be more sensitive with your conversation, respecting the fact that they have a disabled veteran parent. True.
And if I knew that, if she expressed that to me, and I knew that, then I would have a little bit of empathy and I wouldn't spew my my rhetoric on anti-war in her vicinity or in her earshot. So I would have a little sensitivity to that. But if I don't know my colleagues and know a little bit about them, I wouldn't know. And now that if that woman didn't have the assertiveness to tell me that, then she probably wouldn't want to be around me. We would never be in the break room together. She would avoid me and I would be a horrible person without somebody saying, hey, Joe, you know, when you say that, my father's a wounded war veteran in World War II, and, you know, it really hurts me because he sacrificed his life for our freedoms and blah, blah, blah. And I would have to say, wow, I didn't know that. And we can have that conversation. Let's see. It may make future conversations out. Yes, yes. If I didn't know some of the things about my colleagues, I mean, it could make me very uncomfortable in conversations. Strong desire for higher education, somebody mentioned. If you knew them, they have a strong desire for higher education. So this activity is just a way to understand and learn about the people we work with. So 50% of everything you know right now, till the day you die, really, 50% you learn before your 6th birthday. 6 years old, 6. It comes from that basic belief system, from our raising, our conditioning, the role models in our lives, and these become ingrained in our lives. So from birth to 6, we learn the most basic belief system on how I fit in, what was taught to me. So let's put this into a life cycle model, which is said that early life experiences, that's our childhood, our beliefs, assumptions, it could be fact or fiction, the way we behave is our output, and then new information is that new experience in our lives. So let's say single woman raising one and only daughter, right? Father's gone for whatever reason. So that's that little girl's experience in her childhood. And mom says that men are evil. Men are bad. Don't trust them. They will only break your heart. Men are horrible. Does that little girl take that as fact or fiction?
Fact.
That's fact, right? That's mommy telling me the wisdom of the world. So what are her actions as she becomes an adolescent and a young lady?
Guarded.
Guarded, right? Have really, you know, relationships too close, she pulls away. Some other answers where it becomes a man-hater kind of thing. So her output from that information, from those beliefs and values, she's going to have unhealthy relationships or be really guarded. But now she meets a new guy. She's getting new input. This guy's different. He's got, you know, integrity. He's got honor. He loves her so much. He lives at home with his parents. I mean, he's a great guy. Now that young lady has to decide, do I change or do I stay the same? Do I stay the same and believe mom's stereotypes and assumptions? Or do I say, you know what, this doesn't fit that mold? No, that was mom's hang up. That's what mom needed to do. Now she needs to make that decision to change. All right, so that's all the psychological diversity of all those unconscious biases and those assumptions and those values and views on how many things form that into our psyche, into our belief system. Now we have socioeconomic diversity. Whether you live in the city or suburbs, whether you own or rent, you move frequently. So let me give you this video and let me know if this video is glitchy or you can't hear it. Bob Marley's going to be interviewed by a white European male. Stop me if you can't hear it or if it's glitchy.
Have you made a lot of money out of your music?
Money. I mean, how much is a lot of money to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Have you made, say, millions of dollars?
No.
Are you a rich man?
When you mean rich, what you mean?
Do you have a lot of possessions? A lot of money in the bank?
Position make you rich? I don't have that type of richness. My richness is life, forever.
All right, so what's the first question that white European male asks Bob Marley? You got a lot of money? And what's Bob Marley's like? Well, I don't know. What do you think a lot of money is? White European male says what? $1 million? No. What's the next thing the white European male asks Bob Marley? If he doesn't have $1 million, you got a lot of possessions, right? So what is that white European male's values compared to Bob Marley? Bob Marley's like, possession make you rich? What are you talking about? Two different values on economics. Some people own, some people rent. My father used to always say, hey, honey, renters just moved down the street. There goes, can anybody finish that sentence for me? There goes the neighborhood. Because my father's assumption on renters where they weren't vested in the property, they're just gonna ruin it and leave, run it down. So his assumption on renters. People who move frequently. Anybody have an opinion, an assumption on people who move frequently? Every time the bill comes, they leave. Maybe they're just not responsible. But you don't know that. Maybe they work for the service and they have to move for, being stationed somewhere else. So all these things in this socioeconomics, in the culture of survival, if we never experience that, we say, well, my ancestors came here with $5. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But a culture of survival, if you never experienced what it's like to wonder where your next meal is coming from, we're never going to be able to feel that pain, that never be able to understand the opportunities or lack of opportunities that person has. And to put it a little bit more tangible, I don't know if there's any other men in the room, but any male in the room, you will never ever know what it's like to be a female. We would never, I can intellectualize it. I have my opinion about it, but you'll never know what that inequality feels like or the objectivity feels like. Same thing with women. Women, you will never, ever, ever know what it's like to be a male. You'll never know what that experience is like, that we can't show our feelings. We got to be this hard person. If we're soft, you get beat up in high school, and we have to like sports and whatever is attached to that. And anybody in the room who is not a person of color, you would never, ever, ever know what it's like to be Black. You would never know what that experience is like. Yeah, there's literature on it, there's movies about it, you can intellectualize it and read all about it, but you'll never, ever know what that experience would be like. So socioeconomic diversity is looking at that tip of that iceberg and then having those assumptions on anybody, that where they live, what their housing is like, if they move frequently. So now we have multicultural diversity. This is our communication styles, and that is the number one thing that excludes us at a workplace, in our neighborhoods, in our relationships. If we can't communicate, then we're going to be very uncomfortable. As in, we're not going to be able to get along, we're not going to be able to have relations, we're not going to be able to understand our colleagues. And I'm going to play this joke. And Bob Marley came around okay with the audio?
Yeah.
All right. So this is this anchor guy. He's going to interview the Dalai Lama and see how the communication goes.
So the Dalai Lama walks into a pizza shop.
Cosa shop?
Pizza?
Pizza shop, yes.
Yeah, pizza shop. And says, "Can you make me one with everything?"
What's that? That's what it. Oh, yes.
Do you know what I mean? Can you make me one with everything?
Theoretically possible.
Oh, I knew that wouldn't work.
So does everybody get the joke? Walks into a pizza shop, make me one with everything. So as they're telling that joke, the anchor guy, he goes right over the Dalai Lama's head. I mean, pizza shop, though. The Dalai Lama goes to his interpreter. What do you mean pizza shop? What's he talking about? Oh, okay, he's back on track. And then the punchline of the joke, make me one with everything, is something the Dalai Lama should know about, because that's the whole paradigm of the Buddhist religion, is make me one with everything, but it just goes right over his head. A lack of communication. So if the Dalai Lama was in the workplace, and he just didn't get my jokes, he's hard to communicate with, I wouldn't want to go in the break room with him. I just don't want to be on his team because we just don't jive. I just don't understand that person because we have different communication. It could be an accent that's too hard to understand. If I can't communicate with somebody, it's going to be really hard for me to understand them and have a respectful, inclusive relationship with them. And then different greetings, the handshake, the bow. If you were working with somebody, Chinese or Asian, do you bow, do you handshake? You get, which one do you do? Or the French kiss, that the double-sided cheek kiss. A quick story, I worked with a lot of African-American men in the restaurant business, and they come in, they do a cool handshake, and I was Nerdy Joe. This is like 20 years ago. And, I felt weird and out, detached. So I told my buddy Keith, I said, Keith, slow down, man. What do you guys do? So he taught me their cultural handshake. And now I was included. But now I don't have to assimilate to that handshake. They just shared a part of their culture with me. And I shared a part of my culture with him. I said, well, I'm 100% Italian. And my father taught me in Italy, he was from Sicily, that their handshake is one up, one down, and we let go. So I've been shaking hands like that my whole life. I control the handshake. I shake hands, one up, one down, and I let go. So when I meet somebody that's like this, hey, Joe, how you doing? Where are you from? And I'm like, dude, just stop. Don't touch me, man. It's so odd when somebody shakes my hand for like 5 seconds because I'm not used to it and it's uncomfortable. So he thought that was kind of cool that I shared my handshake with him, but we don't have to assimilate to them. We just have to understand the culture of that greeting. Eye contact. Would you learn about eye contact when you were younger? Make it, don't make it. Some cultures it's respectful, some cultures it's threatening and disrespectful. So if the new person joined your team, they didn't look you in the eyes and you're like, hey, did you meet the new person? Yeah, I don't know, he didn't look me in the eyes, I don't trust him. Without realizing that that person is respecting you by not looking you in the eyes. Our personal space influences that inclusion. So if you had a close talker, any close talkers in the office? I had a buddy that puts his hand on my shoulder every time he wants to tell me a story. And again, I was like, I don't want, don't want to be touched. Maybe that's why I'm still single at 55, but that's a different story, a different training. So we have different personal space in our culture. I know African-American, Hispanic, they're a little bit more inclusive. They live a little closer together. So their personal space, it's a little bit more allowed, that closeness. Other cultures, I don't know, here in the Western world, what do we got? 3 feet hula hoop, they call it, right? You get in my space, I get uncomfortable. Well, now it's 6 feet with the COVID and stuff, but families, the family dynamics, gender roles, all those things are so cultural. And when we see something that goes against our culture, we go into that belief system and value system and assumptions, and it makes us uncomfortable or we get offended. Some of our gestures might offend people. You can see this is obviously a tourist, and this guy's from Great Britain. What does this mean in America? Peace or victory, depending on what era you're from. Victory in the, the baby boomers or the veteran cohorts, meant victory. But in Great Britain, this with a shake actually means the same meaning as the middle finger. So if you went to Great Britain and you came out and you're like, hey, peace, I'm from America, you might not get the response that you're looking for because you just told them to bleep, bleep. So some of our gestures, like thumbs up, means A-OK, but thumbs up in other gesture in other cultures are offending. It's a derogatory remark. Just like the A-OK sign, that has another meaning in different cultures, derogatory. Some of our presidents of the United States have offended entire countries. I think it was one of the Bushes from Texas. This means the Texas horns. But he gets off the plane and on the tarmac in another country, he gives double Texas horns, as in, Texas power. But in other cultures, that symbol means the devil. So he goes to their country and he's like, you can all go to HL double hockey sticks. So some of our gestures might be offending to other cultures. Not that we need to know all of these gestures, but when we do cross them, we need to get some information. I didn't realize that. And we need to own that instead of saying, I didn't mean anything by it. This is America. This is what we do. And that really, divides us and excludes us from, being an inclusive team. And we talked about this last week, that our brains, when we see something, our brains actually go through all the data that we've ever experienced and pick out something familiar. And from last week, we talked about young woman, old woman, and then the young children saw a badger crawling into a cave because that's what they were comfortable with. So these are all those unconscious biases. We see something and what messages are attached to that picture. And again, we did this last week too. I don't want to waste too much time on that, but just like that Mcgurk video I showed in the beginning, when the guy was saying ba, 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 but he was using the F sound in it, you close your eyes, you hear something totally different. So they always say, believe half of what you hear, I'm sorry, half of what you see and none of what you hear. All right, my video is glitchy again. I hope you guys are all right getting some of this information. Is it coming through all right, anybody?
You're fine.
I can hear you just fine.
All right. So it brings us to stereotypes. A stereotype is generalizations based on limited knowledge of a group that you don't even belong to. So tell me if any of these stereotypes are true. Any Irish people in the room?
I am, and I can't stand beer. So
All
that's
right.
not true. It might be true for some, but not me.
So we just debunked that one. There's an Irish person in the room that not drinks a lot of beer, just can't stand beer. But every one of these are stereotypes because they're based on limited knowledge. They're based on that information we got when we were younger. But some of these seem true. Don't you think some of these seem true? If they seem true, it means that that's what you learn through the information. Our jokes that we used to tell when we were younger, maybe, sitcoms or movies that you see that portray some of these things of Asian people are good at math, teens are irresponsible and troublemakers, old people are stuck in their ways. So if they seem true, that's the stereotype that we were indoctrinated with. And through our life experience, yeah, I've seen these. These are real from your limited knowledge, from your limited experience in life. So those are stereotypes, which kind of leads us to the biases that we have in this world, in our brains. So those biases are those characteristics of those stereotypes that we will not change, no matter how much new information we hear, that we will not change that belief system. And that's that blind prejudice, that blind bias that we have. Your life experience saw this, and that is true for your life and for everybody that you meet. So because of these blind prejudices and these biases and stereotypes, we do need protections, workplace protections, which is the Title VII of the, what's it called? Losing my vocabulary here. Somebody help me with this one. Civil Rights Act. Thank you, guys. Civil Rights Act. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 protects based on these characteristics of gender and race, ethnicity. There's one missing out of here, which I didn't update this training. And it was just a Supreme Court decision last year. And what is missing is sexual orientation that they added to the protected classes here. So we do have those in our workplaces, and that Civil Rights Act, Title VII, it doesn't protect all the prejudices and biases in our world. So we need accountability to understand other people and be respectful and responsible for our behaviors and learning new information. Now, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, which means that if we broadened our horizons, if we took a new way home from work, shopped at a different market, talk to somebody that you don't typically talk to or wouldn't normally talk to broaden your horizons and getting a little information from somebody different or a different place, that we could get rid of some of those prejudice and bigotry and biases. So we really have to self-monitor ourselves and saying, am I responding in a professional way? Am I showing a general interest to learn? Am I taking this as an opportunity to share my own concerns? To do that self-reflection, to say, wow, if you're uncomfortable with somebody's dress, maybe a hijab or a burqa, if somebody is dressed in a full burqa, a Middle Eastern woman, and you don't know what that's all about, it makes you feel uncomfortable, to go home and Google it, saying, what is this about? Why do they wear this? Or why do they do this? What is this religion about? To get a little knowledge and have that interest to learn. Because it's all about our perception. Our perception is reality. 90% is the way we look and the way we sound. 10% is what words are coming out of our mouths. So our reality is based on our understanding, our values, our beliefs. And when we say something, only 10% of that message is our words. 90% is our tone, our eyes, our mouth, our face, our body. And some terms I'd like to bring up kind of to close with here are microaggressions is one, or micro insult, micro exclusion. Microaggressions are things that we say that doesn't seem offending, but is really offending to a marginalized population. So if you say to a Black person, oh, you don't seem Black, you don't act Black, what are you saying? Sure, I don't mean any harm, but when I say that, hearing that, being of African-American descent, that is very hurtful and disrespectful. What are you saying, that I'm a micro exclusion so that I'm not acting Black, but my whole entire African-American heritage is acting a different way? Or if you're Hispanic and somebody says, oh, you don't speak Spanish? That's a microaggression. By you're saying that these things that you're seeing, that you're sharing how different they are in your belief system, is actually hurting that other person. How about, oh, you live in that part of town? That is actually hurtful for somebody. What are you saying about the part of town that they're living in? A micro insult is something like, how can I explain this? So you're going to say that this person is an exception to their entire race. So you are not this. Oh no, you're really respectful and I understand you. But everybody else in that marginalized population, you're insulting and you're excluding them. Equality is very different than equity. Since we have a Civil Rights Act and all kinds of laws protecting equality in this world, not for everyone. Equity, see, equality is everybody's allowed to go to a restaurant nowadays in the 21st century here. But equity is being able to buy a hamburger there. Not everybody has the equity of success, of being able to have their needs met. Sure, equality is there, I guess, but it's not equitable for everybody. And then these last two words I want to share here. Privilege. Nobody really knows about their privilege because it doesn't affect them. White privilege, and this is a very defensive term, to say, what do you mean I have privilege because of the color of my skin? White privilege is that your color of your skin isn't holding you back from going forward in this world. So marginalized populations like minorities and such, the color of their skin may inhibit them from being equitable, for being treated equal, or just from them living their lives and going forward and gaining anything. I experienced white privilege once I learned about it and was aware of my privilege. I went downtown last summer to eat dinner at right outside of Campus Martius. And then we went to walk the boardwalk. And I had to go to the bathroom. And it was getting dark in the evening. And I saw somebody go in this building. It was a Renaissance Center. I didn't even realize it was a Renaissance Center. So I walk in the Renaissance Center, me and my girlfriend, and there's 2 security guards by the elevators. And I walked up and they said, "Having a good stay, sir?" And I was like, "Yes, thank you." And we walked right on in. I mean, could anybody do that? Could anybody just walk in the Renaissance Center and pass 2 security guards and just assume that I was a resident or staying there? And I have many other white privilege that I realize that I am treated differently in certain situations than others. And the last is the fragility. This is where if somebody does cross the line, saying something upset, and then the marginalized population points that out to that white fragility, I'm going to put white fragility, they defend themselves. I'm not racist because I have a Black friend. I'm not racist because my wife is Black. I'm not racist because I'm a good person. So that fragility is that defense system that comes up in the white culture that's going to give reasons for the misstep that they have done. Instead of owning that misstep and saying, "Wow, I didn't realize that." So you're saying that when I do this, it's offending because, and having that conversation. Because once I say, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" What? "Oh, just because I'm white, you think this is?" So once you start defending yourself, that's that white fragility, that you're not understanding that other people's plight in this world is different than yours. All right. I'm a little over my time here. Does anybody have any insight? Would anybody like to give any revelation?
I just think it was very interesting what you just said about becoming defensive, and I think this world could do with a lot more of, "Oh, I didn't know that. Like, thank you for pointing that out. You know, I wasn't aware of that. That wasn't my intention. I didn't mean to be offensive." You know, I think we'd all be in a lot better place if more people had that attitude about it.
Yeah, because Katie, they're giving you knowledge on what you just said is hurtful or disrespectful. They're giving you knowledge. Now you have to have an understanding and sensitivity to that knowledge and to learn from it rather than defending yourself. So yes, thank you for sharing that, Katie. We do need to have those respectful conversations. One big thing, if you can stay with me for 3 more minutes. Everybody okay? Heading on. So there's this book, White Fragility, and people get defensive to say that everybody's saying that all white people are racist. But she changes it. She says, not that you're racist, it's just like, how has racism affected you? How has racism, not that you are, it's just how has racism formed in your belief system? What has racism done in your world? So the culture, I'm going to talk about the white race. The culture is that in all races, the thing is being good, right? We all want to be good. But in the white culture, being good is everything, right? I need to be good. And racism is bad. So if somebody accuses me on being biased or prejudiced or racist, I am like, wait a minute, no, I'm a good person. I can't be racist because I'm a good person. And it's not about that, because racism, we all were born into a world that racism existed and lives. So how is that affecting you? So they say racism is like being clean. And if somebody says, "Hey, Joe, you're racist," you're like, "Oh, no, I can't be racist because I'm clean. I took a shower this morning, I'm all clean. I can't be racist." Racism is more like dental hygiene, where we need to brush our teeth every day. We need to floss. We need to clean ourselves every day. We just can't say we're clean and never take another shower for the rest of our lives. No, we need to work on it. So they're saying that racism or anti-racism really needs to be worked on every day. So if somebody says, Joe, you got spinach in your teeth, I can't say, oh no, I brushed my teeth this morning, I can't have spinach there. No, there's spinach there, Joe, and you need to get that out of there and, you know, clean up a little bit. And that's kind of like the best way I'd heard about racist kind of talked about, is that it's something we need to work on every day. Something we need to learn and understand and communicate every day. Just like Katie says, it would be great if we could talk about that and understand each other and have those healthy conversations. All right, I'm done rambling. And I like to close with this wonderful quote. T.S. Eliot said, "Never cease exploring, for at the end of your exploration, you will end up right where you started and see it for the first time." It's a deep quote. So we're born into this world and we go exploring. And at the end of our lives, or at the end of our parents' lives, we go right back maybe to that childhood home. And now we're our middle aged, hopefully, when we lose our parents, or our older age, but we see things with new eyes because we had a whole life experience. And now we're right back where we started, but we're seeing it with new eyes. Thank you guys for your attention and the extra 7 minutes y'all gave me. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining. We will see you on Thursday, where we will be talking about human trafficking and online safety.
Thank you.
Thank you.